is Shari Arison. We're here with the Path to Enlightenment and Inner Peace, and today with Osnat Harel. Welcome.
Hi. I'm very glad to be here.
I'm happy you're here. Tell me a little bit about yourself before we get into
All right.
to everything else.
I'm a widow in a second relationship now. I'm a mother of 3 boys. That means that I'm a mother-in-law for 3 girls.
Okay.
And I have 7 grandchildren.
Wow. That's
I'm lucky.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I've been all over the world for my career.
Okay.
I traveled from the U.S. twice in the U.S. I studied there. And for the last 18 years, I'm in the Adler Institute of Israel.
So that's what we want to talk about is the Adler Institute. But before the Adler Institute, when you say you traveled a lot, was did it have to do with the same kind of path that you have at the Adler Institute? How did that connect?
No, it does not connect.
Really?
Well, everything is connected after all.
Okay.
However, no, we traveled twice for my husband's job.
Okay.
Once was in the Air Force, the Israeli Air Force.
Okay.
The second was for a private company.
Mm-hmm.
And we took our children twice, so we moved them. And I've learned a lot about the way you present things to your kids, how influences the way you present reality, how it influences the way your kids accept movements, changes, challenges.
So that does connect to the Adler
Institute.
Institute.
It does, yeah.
And the different cultures, did you find a big difference? Where did you move to?
Well, first was Dayton, Ohio. Second was Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, which is the Midwest.
And that's very different from being in Israel.
Very different.
Okay.
And this was what the best thing of it, because my children, especially my children, could see the world in a very wide angle. It's not only being an Israeli, going to the army, being threatened by, our enemies or whatever. People are more calm. People see each other in a different way, more polite.
Yes.
Say good morning, even though they don't know each other personally, the way they drive. So and they became bilingual, which was also very good. So my children are, I would say, one more thing. I was not a religious woman. However, I married a very religious man.
Oh, wow.
So pluralism was in my house, in my home.
Mm.
So my kids, my boys, grew up to know that there are so many differences between people.
I think that's so important. I was born in America and I live in Israel.
Yeah.
And I think when you have that experience, it gives you the tools to bridge bridges. And I think that's so important. And it also, you talk about how, the Israeli mindset versus the American. But I think there's a lot of good to bring from Israel to the States and to the world. And then there's a lot of good to bring from the States to Israel.
It's mutual influence.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know that my kids, speaking broken language as well as I did, you have to become more attentive, good listener in order to understand, because this is a different English, a different accent. And my kids had to be very attentive and very going in the world with question marks. I think this is the main thing. I don't know everything. So I need to be I need to be a good listener. I need to be attentive. I need to know how to ask questions and also how to ask for help. I don't know everything.
Nobody does.
Nobody does.
Exactly.
And this was a very, very good lesson, a life lesson.
So tell me about the Adler Institute.
The Adler Institute in Israel is the largest, the biggest, and the oldest one in the world.
Well, first of all, for people who don't know what the Adler
Okay.
Institute
It's a non-profit organization established in Israel in the early 80s.
Okay. Where did it start?
Where?
Not in Israel. Where did it start in the world? Because it's all over the world.
Yeah. Well, Adler was born in Vienna.
Okay.
And he moved to the U.S.
Okay.
And the first organization was founded in the U.S., University of Adlerian Studies, by Adler and Dreikos. They're fellow scholars.
And the Adler Institute basically teaches parents how to teach their children or help their children. Could you explain a little more?
Yes, the Adler Institute, the purpose of the institute, the organization, is to provide people with skills and knowledge about relationships, about how we supposed to live our life in order to be in a well-being situation. Since everything starts in the family, the main thing is to teach parents how to raise people, because kids, it's a very temporary state. Being a kid, we grow the next generation. So we work with parents, but we also work with kindergarten teachers, with school teachers, with the army, with Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health.
When you say work with them, you work with them in order to build good relationships.
Give them principles.
Okay.
And very practical principles, how to listen, how to develop empathy, how to recognize your own emotions and feelings, give them a place, a space, and how to recognize other people's emotion. We will discuss the 5 pillars of the theory so we can understand how we do this.
Okay. Before we get to the 5 principles, you said he's from Vienna. It started in the United States. For people that are listening, that are watching, where can they find the Adler Institute? Is it all over the world? Is it just the U.S. and Israel? Where is it at?
Well, there is Adlerian groups in almost every country in the world.
Okay.
But they are not organized as we are here in Israel.
Okay.
Basically, in most places, these are scholars, professors in the universities, or they do psychotherapy.
Okay.
Adlerian psychotherapy. Only in Israel, the Israeli Institute is organized as such that we take the principles and implement them in all life circles. Elderly people, young people, army.
Oh, I didn't know that. I always thought it was just for parents with children.
Oh, no. Because everything starts in the family. We try to convince the country, the state, the government, that if you see the family as a resource and provide them with the tools, skills to raise responsible people who see the environment, people who see other people as important as they are, society will be better.
I agree.
So this is our mission.
So what
to
are
grow
the 5
people, to develop human beings living with other human beings with mutual respect, sense of worth, equality of worth as people, as human beings.
It's so important.
I agree.
So you said there's 5 principles or 5 pillars?
5 basic pillars that it takes 3 years to teach them, but we will go through them.
Okay.
The main and most basic purpose in life, from birth to death, is to feel sense of belonging.
Oh, I agree.
People need to feel this. Otherwise, they cannot communicate, they cannot function in life.
I think today in the digital age, it's even more difficult. People are so, everybody's with their screens, with their, with their telephones and their iPads. And I think people feel very disconnected. Do you have
It's
something?
a paradox.
Yeah.
The more you connected,
Yes.
the less you feel connected.
Exactly.
The personal connection, the emotional connections.
Yeah. I truly hope that we go back to personal connections. It is so important.
That's
So,
what we do.
how do you do that?
Okay, the principles are the main purpose of human beings is to feel connected, to feel the sense of belonging,
Right.
which is subjective. It depends. It varies from one to another. The first thing is we are born with the potential of social interest. Little kids need other kids, and they have this potential to connect, to relate to other people, to other kids.
It's funny when you see children, even the language is not a barrier. When you see kids speaking
You don't
different
need
language,
words.
they don't need the language.
Right.
They play together. It's so cute to see.
It's the basic connection. They feel each other. They look, they touch. So the first pillar is we are social creatures and we need other people.
Okay.
So we need cooperation. We need mutual respect. If I cannot respect other people, they will not respect me.
But it's one thing to understand that. It's another thing to be that,
Yes.
to practice that.
Yeah.
So how do you find people going from understanding but to actually being, doing?
So the Adlerian theory is very practical. We teach the theory and then we give people special tools and way of behavior, how to behave at home in order to practice social interest. For example, if you take your kids to the park and they want to play something, and other kids are waiting in line, it's time that you tell your son, it's now the turn of other children.
Right.
Let's move aside because other children want to play.
But
it goes by the very daily, very simple, practical practice.
But the parent has to be in that headspace first.
I know.
In other words, the parent has to be in a place where it's not my kid and then hogging, the swing or whatever it is. And the parent has to be in a place where he's
my prince.
Yes,
and
exactly.
My princess.
Where the parent is generous and gives boundaries to the children. I think today a lot of the issue is not having enough boundaries.
Yeah.
So how do you get the parents to?
And that's why we work with parents and we do not work with kids.
Okay.
Because the parents are the models. The parents are the leaders. They are the mentors for their kids, how to live their life better. So we work with teachers and with parents and teach them the theory. Teach them how they should behave themselves first in order to raise their kids accordingly with the theory. And
give me an example of a parent or a teacher that made a life change that you can say that they went from X to Y and they, that you could really see the difference.
Oh, very, very simple things.
Like what?
Like a parent will say in a parents groups, they would say, I want my son to be a very responsible grown-up man or woman. When we ask them questions, this is a 13 or 14 years old child that a parent wakes him up every morning in order for him not to be late for school.
And they don't give the kids the responsibility to do it
themselves. You don't provide them the opportunity to become a responsible person.
Oh, that's a great example.
Very simple, very simple. We're talking about the Me Too era.
Yes.
How we raise our boys and girls to respect their own body. If I tell my little kid, my little girl, you need to keep your body for yourself, don't let anybody touch you. And then she sees me getting dressed in the morning, going to work, very, very exposed, And when they see me with other people, and we touch each other, not like friends, not a hug. Little kids, they have good senses. They can recognize a touch. They can recognize a look. So I need to be a model for my kids. It's not what I preach, but rather what I do.
It's being an example.
Example, we are the model. And when I ask in my lectures at what age people in Israel learn how to drive their cars, they say 16 or 15. No, these little babies sit in the car seat behind and they watch me. The way I allow other drivers to go in front of me, the way I treat the lights, the way I drive and keep the rules. So 75% of what kids get from the parents or the teachers, politicians, managers, is the way we behave. They look at us. It's like a sponge. And they look and absorb what we do more than what we say.
It's funny. I know that parents are aware of that. They know that. And yet we forget that so quickly.
Yeah.
Could you give me the next principle?
Yes. The next principle is freedom of choice. We have a freedom to choose our emotions. We need to practice how to manage our emotions and feelings, and we can choose. There is genetics. We're born with few parameters. However, we can choose what to do with the specific genetics that we get
I totally
at
agree.
birth.
I totally agree with you.
I can go in the world. Two people can be blind. Two kids. One can go in the world, I'm a miserable person, I need you to take care of me, I can't do this, I can't do that. The other child can go in this world and say, I'm exactly like you, I just can't see.
Yeah.
And it makes a completely different the way he and the other one will choose a career, relationships with other people, and the way they will provide a well-being for themselves to live a better life.
But what you're describing is so much spiritual teaching. And yet this sounds so, for parents, for teachers, practical.
It's very practical.
Very practical. And when I talk to people who are on a spiritual path,
yes,
it sounds exactly the same.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
The other thing is subjectivity. You are so different than I am. And this is the beauty of life. Imagine if we all would have been the same.
I always say we're each unique. We have
Each
our own
unique,
fingerprint.
Yes. Yes.
And people forget that.
And how you grow your child to understand that the other child in its class sees differently, behaves differently. People come to our clinic for couple counseling.
Oh, I
and
didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we have.
Okay.
And sometimes, and most times, the women would say, how come he does not understand? This is so clear, so simple. But he has his private logic. I have my own private logic based on how my parents behaved to me, what was the atmosphere in my home when I was a child. So we are different, and we see reality in different eyes.
So you teach different perspectives,
Yes.
different way
Yes.
of looking and understanding that each
Yeah.
person's unique.
And also we provide a model, which is, in Hebrew, it's called Efrat. It's the way you interpret reality.
Okay.
There are things, events all over. Every moment, everywhere you go, there are events. Small event, little event, big event. In many cases, in most cases, you don't have any control over the events. You have huge control over how you understand those events.
How you react.
The second is the way you give interpretation to the event, then you have the special feeling and emotion that evoke the behavior. Once you change and you enlarge the angle, you look at things, you look at events, and everywhere, between couples, between parents and children, between co-workers, and in the streets.
So what you're describing is a process.
Yes.
How long is a process when you do a class, a workshop? How does that work? How long does someone have to sign up for?
Well, first of all, it's a it's a lifetime. It's a lifetime learning, but you need to start somewhere.
You know it's lifetime. I know it's lifetime, but a lot of people, if you tell them lifetime, they won't even get started.
I know.
So, a lot of times people start with a lecture or a class or a
in
workshop.
many organizations and companies, like banks, like high-tech companies, they invite us to give lectures.
Okay.
Just to raise the awareness that we operate on a automatic pilot.
Okay. So lectures is something you do in Israel. Is that something that's done all over the world?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
so you could have or go to a lecture.
Yeah. Second thing is to take a workshop.
Okay. How long is
5 meetings, 10 meetings with the parents. We walk sometimes 24 meetings.
Okay.
A 2-hour meeting.
So it's a group of parents.
It's a group of parents. They come once a week in the evening, and they learn the theory. They get practical tools how to behave with kids in order to raise them responsible human beings.
I remember when I was a young parent,
Yes.
I went to, at the time in Miami, it was called PET, Parent Effectiveness Training.
Yes.
And it gave me a lot of tools. And I think every young parent should definitely take a class. I think it helps a lot. We're definitely not born knowing exactly what to do. We might have an instinct,
Yes.
But it's good to get those tools.
I would not allow to represent me in a court if you have not studied to become a lawyer.
Yes, and yet people have children and they don't.
And this is the
with
most significant duty in life. Mm. You are raising people, how to raise them with self-confidence, self-assurance. Kids that don't feel belong in a class, they cannot, verbally and cognitively, they cannot tell the teacher, I don't feel belong, I feel bad, please help me. So what they do, they misbehave.
Exactly.
In order for the teacher to see them. They are raising red flag. Please see me. I don't feel well. When a child is self-confident, he knows that he is being loved, that he is being appreciated as a human being, although he is small. He does not have to become a bully. He does not have to put other kids down in order to feel higher, better.
But that's a wider subject. I think the school systems in general should really have more focus on raising human beings. I mean, the focus is on, learning math, history, language. And I think it's very important that schools teach kids how to be good, honest, caring human beings, how to deal with their emotions, their feelings. This is something that in Essence of Life we've talked about, and that's something we do in our visitor center.
Raising people,
yes,
raising human beings.
I agree.
It's so basic.
I agree.
Because, when a child goes to school and he feels confident and he knows that he is capable of getting success, the teacher will be less occupied with him, with his behavior, with his grades, because he knows he can do it.
I agree.
So encouragement is very basic. How to encourage people. How to encourage my spouse. It's the same principles work with couples.
Let's go back to the
Okay,
principles.
the third one is purpose. We have purpose in life. Behavior is purposeful. Everything we do is not because what my parents did to me when I was a child. Yes, it affects. It has an influence on me. However, I can choose my behavior, and my behavior has a purpose.
I think purpose, I mean, they've shown today that, having purpose is what brings us happiness. Yes. Nothing else really brings us happiness. If we have purpose and we have meaning in life, that's how we feel fulfilled.
I'm glad you said happiness, because when we ask parents, what is your mission in life? What do you want? We want our children to be happy. Well, you cannot have any control over your kids' happiness.
Yes.
You need to give them life skills, emotional skills, social skills, so they will choose to become happy.
So purpose.
And what purpose, is the last one is holism.
Is what?
Holism.
Holism? Explain that to me.
Yes. We are one human being. And this was the basic difference between Adler and Freud.
Okay.
Freud had divided the human being three parts. Mm-hmm. The id, the ego, and the superego. And he explained us that there is a conflict between the superego and the id. Adler said, no, we are one. And we are one unit. And emotionally, cognitively, we operate in order to get our purposes in life. And remember, the main and the basic purpose is to feel sense of belonging. What we do through life in order to feel a better sense of belonging.
But
so
we are
holism
one.
Is, first of all, we are one, but we live in systems.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to get to.
Family is a system, and the family, because it's so basic, it's the training field for the child to understand holism, to understand life.
But even before the family, I mean, when you say we're one, we are part of a system as one. Yeah. We have our mind, we have our body, we have our emotions.
As one unit.
We have our spirit, we have our ego. We are one, but there are many parts to that one.
But they are all coordinated. They are all one.
We hope they're all coordinated, I think.
Well, we're talking about healthy people.
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking about mainstream healthy people.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And Adler would say even that mental health, is on a line. Being mentally ill, the other side is complete your social interest. Seeing other people, understanding that your life will become better if other people will be better, because we are all connected as community and then as a state, country, and the universe. And everything I do has an influence on other people.
I totally agree with you. Believe it or not, we're almost wrapping it up. And before we do, I'd like to hear a story of something that was outstanding to you, whether it's in a family or whether it was in a school, something that really made a major shift after coming to one of the classes or courses.
Yeah, I will tell you just this in a minute. Israelis from all over the world ask us to teach them what we teach here in Israel. So we are starting to teach Adlerian theory and practice to Israelis all over the world.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Online teaching. This is so exciting.
That's huge.
Because they come and say, well, please open the institute in the US and in Europe, in many countries. I support Bulgarian educators how to teach the Adlerian system in kindergarten. So The world is so
Oh, wow. So
open.
anybody who's interested can go to online trading, which is wonderful.
We are starting in Hebrew, and then
Okay.
we'll go to English.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So any tip that you have before we sign off? Something that somebody can take with them?
I think be aware and don't behave on automatic pilot. Ask questions. Take a breath. Just count from 1 to 10 before you act, before you are going to shout and yell and criticize other people. You never know what they've been going through a minute before you met them.
That's so true. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And good luck.
Thank you.